Just recently, Kodak announced that they are going to raise film prices by around 20% by the start of 2022. That is really bad news for all of us film shooters out there. And especially with Fuji not so much film slowly but surely abandoning the film market, it is not going to be any better in the long run. Now, if you still want to shoot film without breaking the bank, you have only a few options. You can shoot cheap black and white film stocks, or you can pick up some expired film on eBay, which is pretty much the only option if you want to shoot color, because there is no cheap, fresh color film stocks out there. I used to buy Kodak Gold at a local drugstore for around 8 euros for a pack of 3, but then they raised the prices to 10 euros this year, and this still sounds fairly cheap compared to what other companies are asking. But now they raised the price to 18 euros. What a bummer. But there is another top secret way to get film for free even. And that is becoming a YouTuber, and people will just send it to you for free. Sounds great, doesn't it? But there's the catch. These rolls are not fresh. And they did not expire just recently, because some of it expired back in 1993. Yes, it's really, really old. All right, let's have a look here. What I got. I got this one here. It's Ilford Pan 100, expired in 1999, so a little bit over 20 years. I also got this here. It's I don't know actually what it is. It's made by Foma. It's color film. It's Equicolor Superior 2000. Pretty weird film. Never seen this before. Got a bunch of these here. I got some Aqua Vista 200, a film that I really like. And this one expired in 2006. Also, this weird film here expired in 2006. The fourth film I got is Foma 100 in 120. It's the only 120 film. And this one expired in 1993. So this is the oldest, almost 30 years old, so pretty crazy. So let's see how these films will turn out. Now, I had no plans to making this video, but after testing the films, I thought I should share my results and what I've learned, because in the current market, that might be helpful for some of you out there as well. Sometimes when you buy expired film, you might get information on how it got stored, or often enough, you don't. In my case, I know that the rolls have not been in a freezer, nor have they been stored in a fridge, which is almost a worst case scenario. To be honest, I wasn't sure if the rolls would be usable at all, so I thought it would make sense to sacrifice one of each to get a general idea before actually using them for filming an episode, for instance. Because I've shot expired film before, where the results were devastating sometimes. However, sometimes the results actually were pretty good, like in this episode for instance, and you are going to see this video in the not so distant future. If you look online on how to expose expired film, you will find a general rule that says for every 10 years it is expired, you should overexpose the film by 1 stop, at least for color, negative film and black and white film. In my case, that would mean 2 stops over for the Ilford and 1.5 stops over for both color film stocks. For the Foma, it would mean even 3 stops over. What I did was I set up a test scene and I used a light meter to get a perfect reading for the base ISO of each film, and from there I overexposed each film by 1, 2 or even more stops. In the end, I had 4 exposures for each black and white film and 5 for each color film. And the reason is because when you have to overexpose 100 speed film by 5 stops, it's not really usable for me anymore because it's just simply too slow. I developed the black and white films myself, and the color films I sent to a lab since I don't have C41 chemistry at home right now. So I sent it off. They developed and scanned it for me, and I got the negatives and the scans back. Alright guys, here are the negatives. This is the Alpha one that I developed myself. This is also the Foma one I developed myself. And these two here are the ones I got from the lab. This here is, I think this one is the Vista 200, and this is the Superior 2000 Equicolor by Foma. All right, let's have a look here on the light table. And let's see the Ilford first. And you can clearly see the different exposures I took. And each exposure looks a little bit different. Pretty much one stop difference. And to be honest, it doesn't look bad. It looks kind of okay. Especially around here, these two, they look pretty fine. Because this here is the table and it's pretty bright, so I think this looks pretty alright. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The FOMA 100 and 120, and as you can see, I mean, you pretty much cannot see anything. I mean, you can make out something, but yeah, this film is pretty much unusable and it's gone. Supriya 2000 by FOMA. And also here, you can see that it is expired. The film base is pretty brownish. It's not looking that great. Yeah, I mean, you can see something. The exposure is here. Here are my 5 exposures where I shot this color chart. And you can see, interestingly, is this here between 4 and 5, or my 5th exposure. Wait, where is it? Yeah, 3 stops over and 4 stops over. It's not a super big difference. There's a little bit of a difference, but it doesn't look like one stop, to be honest. Not sure what's going on. But as you can see later on, this is fairly usable. All right, next one. This is the Vista 200, and here's my base shot at 200, 100, and so on and so forth. And here you can see it's a clear difference between 3 stops and 4 stops over. And I would say this is usable. It looks already usable. It looks better than the other color film. And one thing I've noticed that is actually pretty interesting, it has nothing to do with the exposure here, is, I don't know if you can make it out, but on the film base it says Aqua Vista 200. And this film is expired 15 years. And now let's have a look on Aqua Vista 200 that is more recent, just expired maybe 2-3 years ago or something. And it's this one here. And as you can see, the film base looks very different. And it doesn't really say Aqua, because I would think that they changed the emulsion in between. And this is the film that is probably made by Fuji, because as you can see the lines here, the green and red line, it's the same as on Fujifilm. So this was maybe Aqua closed down its factory and had his film produced by Fuji at some point, and when they switched. So even though it's the same name and even the packaging looks very similar, it's not the same film anymore. It's a different film. Just a side note, because I think that was an interesting find. All right, guys. Now I'm here in Lightroom and let's check out the results. Let's start with the Ilford that I developed myself in Kodak HC110. And like I've mentioned before, I've shot 4 shots with the Ilford at base ISO at 100. That is this one here. Then 1 stop over at 50. Another stop over at 25. And 1 more at 12. So this 3 stops over. And if we now have a close look at base, as you can see already, it's pretty grainy and underexposed. I would not say that this is good. It's not at all. So let's go to 1 stop over at 50. It's getting better, especially in the darker parts, in the shadows. You can see that it's getting a little bit better, less grain. If we now go to this one here, this is now 3 stops over, and I would say between these two is a big difference, as you can see. And it gets even bigger if we go to 12. Now you can see the grain is very fine. It looks pretty nice, to be honest. And I have to say, for me, I would say between this one and this one, that's the sweet spot, I would say. Let's have a look side by side. As you can see here, this one is 3 stops over. The one on the right is 2 stops over. And I would say they are both usable, but I think in between is the sweet spot, and it's almost perfect. If you're wondering about the depth of field, I did not change the shutter speeds because I did not want to introduce any shake, so I changed the aperture to get the overexposure. All right, I would say this actually looks pretty good, and between 25 and 12, this film is actually usable, so not too bad. All right, the next one, let's check out the color film. These are the scans I got from the lab. As you can see, at 200, this is the FOMA color film. At 200, it's totally underexposed. It's absolutely unusable. 100, it gets better, significantly better, but still it's underexposed. And I'm not so much worried about the colors because I don't know what the lab did. You can probably easily fix the color shift here. This one here, it's now at 50, and here it's getting better. 25, and you can see the colors are shifting and the blacks are fading, but this is simply something you can adjust. And I think here the lab wanted to compensate for the overexposure, maybe, or here for the underexposure, who knows. But if we now go in here, have a close look, side by side, as you can see here, on the right is the one overexposed to, this is 3 stops. And I would say it looks better. To my eyes, it looks a little bit better. Yes, the colors are shifted and the blacks are a little too red, but I can just simply show you how to fix it. It's pretty easy. But I would say overall, here, the one on the left at 50, it's okay, but I would probably go rather over to 25, maybe even, let's see how this one looks. Surprisingly, the ISO 12 is a little bit darker, but this might be due to the scan. As we saw on the negative, it's very similar looking on the negative, so I think this is only because of the scan. And I would probably shoot this film at 12 to 25. I think that's fine. Okay, let's have a look at here, this one, and this one is the Vista 200. This is at base ISO, totally unusable. It's pretty much the same we've seen before. Base ISO, it's unusable. 1 stop over at 100, not great either. 50, it's getting better. As you can see, also the colors look a little bit better, less faded, a little bit more saturated. Now here at 25 and 12. As you can see here, there is not a big change here. What you also have to keep in mind is because I opened up the aperture on the last shot, there's more vignetting in the corners because this was shot wide open at f2 with a 40mm Voigtlander on the Nikon FM2. So keep that in mind. So it makes probably more sense to look at the center part and less so on the corners. But let's have a look what the grain situation looks like. So on the left, we have the 25. And here you can see the 12. You can see already it's cleaner. A little bit cleaner. But overall, I would say they are both usable. So I would not hesitate to shoot this film at 25. I think that should give me good results. All right. before we wrap this up, let me quickly show you how to address the color shift in this one, for instance. If we go into the developing module, we go down to the tone curve. And here you have your overall for exposure, but we go into the color channels here. Okay, let's pull this over. All right, we do this for each color channel. And you will see this should give me a decent result. All right, now the color shift is almost gone. So I would say it's pretty much usable. So it's not a big deal if it comes from the lab and the color's a little bit off or there's a little bit of fade going on. You can easily get this back here in Lightroom, no problem. All right, guys, before we wrap this up, please check out one of my street photography scenes, or both if you haven't already. They're both shot on film. This one with the Hasselblad X-Pen, this one with the Leica M6 in Egypt, and both shot on fresh film, not expired one. All right, after reviewing the results, I was surprised to see that the Ilford seemed to have done the best, considering that it is a couple of years older than the color films. That being said, it was shocking to see that the FOMA 100 is pretty much unusable and gone.
It might have been a different story if the film had been in a fridge for the 30 years, I guess.
Now, what's my conclusion? Well, if you pick up a bunch of expired films and you have more than one of each film stock, I think it's worth it to sacrifice a roll to see what results you could expect out of it, especially if the film is expired 10, 15 years or even more than that. Alright, I hope that was as informative for you as it was for myself. And as always, guys, if you liked this episode, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and we will see each other very soon in the next one. Until then, auf Wiedersehen.